Okay, starting out with the tropics, we have two tropical storms. Both of those are going to be heading towards the northwest. Those shouldn't have any impacts on the U.S. itself. Possibly that first tropical storm, Paulette, may affect Bermuda later. Then we have this other wave coming off the African coast. That could be a concern because it's going to take more of a southward track. Let's check out the GFS. So here we are. We're looking off the coast of, I guess, Senegal. And it takes route there just south of the Cape Verde Islands and then moves west-northwest. By the 168-hour point, we can just start picking it up off the edge of the map, and then that comes into the frame around September 20th to 21st. This is still a long ways out. However, it looks like this one is going to recurve also. Now at this time, the main threat looks to be Bermuda, but it's too early to call the track or the intensity at this time. What we can be sure of is that there should be something powerful out there in the western Atlantic in about 1 to 2 weeks. Some very dramatic satellite imagery out there in the Sacramento area. This is the visible imagery. This is exactly what it would look like to human eyes. So a very dirty look across much of the San Joaquin Valley. And last night, we even picked up some of the pyrocumulus on the Sacramento Radar. So this is how the Sacramento Radar looked about 8 a.m. yesterday. These are echotops. And we run this forward through yesterday into overnight. The North Complex fire east of Chico put out some pretty prolific pyrocumulus anvils, or I should say pyrocumulus towers. And right around 2 in the morning, right there, you can see a very prominent echo. And this actually reached about 50,000 feet before settling back underneath the stratosphere there. A couple pulses up there near 30,000 to 40,000 feet, and then it kind of dies off. But the fire is still going at this hour, and that's probably one of the big ones in the state at this time. And there's where that pulse got going about 1 or 2 in the morning. These are the fires up here, and that's probably about where it was hitting 50,000 feet. We were getting about 40 to 50 dBZs out of that mess there, and a lot of that is going to be backscatter from soot and ash. I'm not sure if there was actually any rain or anything like that in it, but I'm pretty sure that there had to be some nucleation of water and ice particles. That brings us back to our big winter storm. Early season frontal system there, now advancing into West Texas, West Oklahoma, and bringing temperatures down to the 30s and 40s. And there's how it looks on the infrared imagery. Looks like the main baroclinic elements moving out into the Caprock area, central Texas and western Oklahoma, and back to the west. These are going to be the occlusion elements. And that's going to be more associated with the cold conveyor belt processes. The 250 millibar chart at this hour showing the main cutoff flow just west of Grand Junction. The polar front jet is up there in the Canadian prairies, linking up to this other branch of the jet across Ontario and Quebec. And then the cutoff branch of the polar front jet rotating around that cutoff low in the Four Corners area and extending up to Nebraska. And the Texas Panhandles, Oklahoma Panhandle getting some of that 60 to 70 knot flow. Here's how things look this morning. There's a big blob of cold air pushing into western Texas. Temperatures down to 42 at Lubbock, 38 at Amarillo with snow being reported. Also Dalhart picking up some of that snow. And we've still got that easterly flow into New Mexico with strong canyon winds in Albuquerque. The cold air is also affecting Arizona. Temperatures down to the low 80s, which is a departure from the upper 90s to low 100s that we saw a couple days ago. And back there in Colorado, still getting some snow, and some of the totals that we've seen, up to 5 inches in Gunnison, out in this part of Colorado here. And then Fort Collins reporting almost 3 inches. Boulder with 5 inches, 2 inches at Colorado Springs, and 1 inch at Denver International Airport. The leading edge of the cold air almost to Fort Worth. We do have a frontal wave developing in that area. The cold front is moving through the Texas Hill Country and has passed Del Rio. Not much to add to the satellite imagery we've already seen. Very smoky across the western U.S., and some of that smoke is being advected eastward into New Mexico and Texas. And transposing that frontal location that's going to be running something like that right there, we can see that this is definitely an anafront. Not a catafront, but an anafront. And that's where the component of motion along the frontal surface is back towards the cold air. And as a result, we get isentropic lift along that front. We can see that here on this isentropic analysis from College of DuPage. This is going to be the 298 Kelvin surface. So the actual altitude is going to vary from about 10,000 feet in the North Plains down to near the surface along the Gulf Coast. And what we see here is the wind is indeed flowing from east to west along the top of the frontal surface. And with the high relative humidity indicated by the green, that's going to mean a lot of cloud and convective weather. In the northwestern U.S., the cold air is still on its way out, creating very gusty conditions through a lot of the mountain passes around Portland, out to the Oregon coast, and those strong winds definitely having an effect on the wildfires. Fortunately, we're going to be seeing the pressure gradient starting to relax a little bit. The cold air outbreak is losing steam, and most of the punch has already been driven to the south, and you can see that the air mass up to the north is recovering pretty nicely. And if it wasn't for those wildfires, you would probably agree that it's a pretty nice day in the Pacific Northwest. And it should stay pretty good, at least for a couple days there. The high pressure in the Wyoming area and on its way southeastward. The northeast U.S. getting ready to contend with the effects of that system coming out of the central U.S. And it looks like we're picking up some of the anafront type setup there, some of the advection of moisture back over the frontal surface. Out ahead of it, we can see some trace of what might be the frontal boundary, and that runs from around St. Louis all the way up towards Buffalo and around Burlington. And out along the eastern coast, can't forget that. Looks like they're pretty much in the tropical weather regime. Pretty typical weather there for September, with moist conditions and warm temperatures. And there's our surface map for the northeastern U.S. Not much going on. Front lying in an inverted trough through the Great Lakes area and just waiting the approach of the system to the west. And for the southeastern U.S., a very quiet day. Some showers along the South and North Carolina coast. That's probably due to a tropical depression just offshore. And NHC is looking for the possibility of a tropical depression coming together. The odds of that looking to be about 30%. And there's the satellite dominated by the approach of that slow-moving cold front out to the west. And elsewhere, it looks like the weather has been dominated by that dry, high-pressure area in Tennessee and Kentucky with a little bit of moisture surge coming into the Carolinas and Georgia. So what's in store? Let's go to the temperature anomaly from the GFS. The models are running a little bit slow today, so we're going to use the 6Z cycle. You can see temperatures running about 40 degrees below normal in parts of Kansas, but if we run this forward, you can see rapid modification of the air mass. The ground just has a lot of heat. And by the time this finally dislodges and moves east, it's warmed up. So kind of a waste of cold air there. I mean, they did get some out there in the Four Corners region. And we're kind of left with the scraps in the eastern U.S., and that'll be gradually oozing eastward over the weekend into Monday and Tuesday. And then we get this rapid warm-up around midweek. Then it looks like another cold air mass will move southward. Looks like the main impact's there in the Great Lakes next weekend, and then more cold air coming in later in the month. That could be just the cold bias from the GFS, but that looks to be kind of a classic early fall cold front on the 25th. We'll see how that pans out. It is the GFS, so I wouldn't put too much stock into that. So bearing in mind that the air masses are going to be moving slowly, now we can kind of see what the pressure systems are doing. The high pressure ridge is going to be extending from southern Colorado into the Great Lakes area and running that forward. The fronts are going to be about like this, maybe a little further north, and out to the west of that we get the antifront set up and the so-called overrunning. So it's kind of acting a little bit like a warm front. So this is looking at tomorrow morning. Tomorrow evening, it's looking like that. And then for Friday, coming up on that already, looks like that high pressure just kind of slides northeast, considerably modified as it moves into New York and Pennsylvania and Ohio. And then the scraps of the cold front moving into the southern U.S., maybe down into this area here. So it will get a little bit cooler, but it's going to be pretty hit or miss. And there's that next system coming down, looking like an Alberta Clipper over the weekend, and you can see the main impact on that is Canada, not going very far south, but the systems after that may have more punch towards the southeast and the south. Okay, that's about all I got for this edition of Forecast Lab. Thank you for watching. Have a great Wednesday, and we will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.